Hello, Internet. That Geek Redhead here. This is my part one of my Tigatron cosplay build. I'm starting with the gun, the infamously named Gut Gun. I've tried to explain this to my friends, but I have no explanation. It's a gun, the barrel of which looks normal, but then the rest of it is animal guts because. And again, apologies for the very inconsistent style of this video. You're going to see angles down, angles from here, look at me talking, sometimes narrating. It was very early on in the process. Not that I have established anything now, but it'll do. You can see what's happened, and hopefully you'll enjoy the end result. It's currently hanging on my wall, and I can't wait to use it with the rest of the costume once it exists. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, the first thing I did was gather as many decent reference images as I could front, top, forward, back. You may notice that this is Cheetor's gun. That's because Cheetor was in the show a lot more and there were a lot more images of his gun. But they're essentially the same. The only difference is the colour scheme and the pelt. Fun fact Cheetor gets his own secondary weapon whenever he and Tigatron are both armed on screen at the same time. Those of you who actually know how to use Blender properly might want to look away, lest ye be angered by what you're seeing, even going at speed. I'm looking back at this going, oh, what was I thinking? I just did a lot of extractions manually, manually extruded and did all sorts of silly, convoluted things, but it was my first time ever really using Blender for anything beyond a box. This bit in particular, try to ignore the fact that I was manually cutting out things for Boolean because the Boolean was just not behaving. Obviously because I had done something convoluted and wrong, but again, la 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 is the beginner. And also, I'm just looking at these going, what are these? Oh yeah, they were like dowels I was going to insert or make, or that ended up not happening. But yeah, one thing I wish I hadn't done is split the thing while I was still sort of modelling and processing it because I thought I was being efficient with the dowel holes, but after a while and after the first test print, it just kind of went a little bit skew-if, and those didn't really do much. Not to mention they just went wrong because I didn't know what I was doing. But regardless, behold, this is the finished product. And if I may say so myself, not too shabby. We're just going to ignore the fact that there are so many polygons and people going, you could have done it. Yes, I know I could have, but I didn't. And I just had to do a lot of sanding in order to up for the horribly not smooth surfaces. But oh well, live and learn. So the next bit is mostly just me gluing these pieces together because my printer was too small to build any of these pieces in one big go. So everything will be glued together and sanded, except for the pieces that will have stuff glued on them, like these ones here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which will be covered in guts, and 5 and 6, which will have fur. This goes on for quite a bit, so I won't subject you to it. Why don't we just assume that everything was sanded and glued with absolutely no problems whatsoever, and then just move on? Okay, cool, thanks. So here I've pulled up a reference picture of the aforementioned gut pieces, and I'm just sketching it in a vague pattern on this back piece. You may notice there's a hole in it. We don't need to pay any attention to that. Not only because it would have been covered up by guts anyway, but I actually end up getting rid of this plastic piece in the end. It was too heavy, really, for the gun. What I ended up doing was just using the foam clay that I had put on top because it obviously dried in that shape. So why have the extra weight? So we don't need to acknowledge the fact that I had a print fail and there's a big ugly hole in this piece. La 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 la. Might be a little difficult to see the pencil marks, but that was the general gist of the placements of the gut snakes. So next I'll be moving on to this piece here. You can see why I didn't bother sanding too much. I did give it a good sand so that the clay would have something to stick to, as opposed to the other piece, which I'm glad I didn't sand much, because then it would have been difficult to get the stuff off. So I've got to put these wire extension things, I don't know what they are, they're just gun hoses, I guess. Got to put those in and work around them. So here I'm just making sure that I haven't gone in any further than I need to, because next is the fun part, the foam clay. Woohoo! So this is where I could be a little bit slapdash and not too neat, because again, they're guts. These are the more organic parts, or really the only proper organic parts of the entire build, frankly. So I can kind of go ham with that if, oops, pun, I think. Yeah, so that's pretty much what happens next. Get out the foam clay, and I learn later on that it's a little unforgiving if you want something really, really smooth, but that just comes with practice, really. So once I had the basic gut shapes in place, I kind of filled in any gaps, checked it against the model a few times, and I used a pencil to sort of shape things and also to create a little definition in between the gut lines so that there was some separation between the various strands of intestine.
Everyone, just thought I'd give you a progress update. I have got the icky, the icky gut bit sculpted. I've glued together this front bit where where have they gone? The gut wires are going to slot in. I've widened the hole so they actually fit, but that might end up being moot because this will be covered in more of this. So at least they fit. I'll probably have to drill into them anyway. I have reprinted these because I failed miserably with the other ones. I've reprinted those, glued those two pieces together. I will be putting those two together. I know this is nothing, but to me this is the definitive gun, the look of the gun, you know. So in fact, what I was doing just a second ago before I was filming, just for the sake of it, I was sorry, I keep the cameras this way, putting it together, which was looking very cool, but I discovered a problem. It's not a problem. It's fixable, but it's just one of those things where I was like, it could have been avoided if I had thought ahead or thought at all. But that's not my style. So I had these pieces stuck together, and this bit in particular sort of in position with this thing while I was sculpting the things on it. The problem is, I think I misread my own model, thinking that this bit with these bits included were going to be slightly further that way on the slightly further one way, which meant when I did a sort of quick put together of the gun, these holes were out of alignment, and I was like, no. But fortunately, so that's literally just held together by masking tape until my UV torch arrives tomorrow. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so it's not a huge deal, luckily. Yes, Lynn, it's very lucky. I don't even know where, oh, there you are. It's like you're not paying attention. Yeah. Sorry, cat break, obligatory. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, this, rather than being snug like so, and that's how I kind of crafted it around, does in fact need to do that. So there's a bit of an overhang, at least, or was it the other way around? I can't remember. Either way, I just need to, it was like that, I think. Yeah, so I just need to, again, not a big deal, I just need to add a bit more around there. And yeah, the plan is I have some scrap aluminium rod here, and it will go just within the length of the assembled weapon. So the plan is to essentially do a bit of a construction, I'll drill a hole through here so it'll go bloop like a really big kebab. But obviously at the moment you can see there's too much give, and these pieces are just a bit too long for me to create any kind of supports through. So what I would do, cause I was going to do this for most of the pieces anyway, just to stop any rattling, is to fill this with expanding foam, drill through it, and then this will have a bit of support. And if I drill a smaller hole than this circumference, I don't know why I'm looking through it, this bit's and then I can just kind of push it through and it'll stay in the middle, and I'm hoping it stays in the middle. Luckily with expanding foam, if I do muck it up, then I can just but I'll do that at a later time. I feel like an utter fool for sanding this bit of the dome so thoroughly because it's yeah, exactly, it's going to be covered, so I feel like a bit of a and I have decided, not just because I'm sick of sanding, I've decided I quite like these dimples here because they kind of give it a bit of character. That's the excuse I'm using. So I'll give it like one more sand just to. I accidentally spilled some resin here, so I'll just get rid of that just so it's uniform, so that when I prime it, it's not different textures. Plus, I need to fix this bit anyway. But yeah, and also annoyed that I've spent so much time on that because I'm going to be drilling a hole through it to put this through. So, whoopsie.
So in this bit, I'm just putting on the gut things while sculpting around those, I don't know, gun wire coil things. Yeah, I don't know what else to call them. I must say it was quite satisfying sculpting everything. I just wish I had sculptor tools instead of using pencils and coffee stirring sticks.
Come on, that is looking very. Hang on. Let's put the. Hang on. And that bit. How good is that? I'm so pleased. So obviously this is not stuck together, and it will be eventually, but I do need to put something through it in order to stabilize it. Hang on, let's pop it down. So I have got this, which will eventually go through. I don't have a hole here yet, so it'll go through there and through these as well, just so that there we go, like so. I still need to fill this with foam, but we'll come to it. The plan, and I say plan, it'll change no doubt, because the plan was something else last night, and then I ended up doing something else, and then this is now the new plan. So the plan will eventually be to take these out again, do some sanding and stuff on here. In fact, that's probably the main thing. I've just realised that these are a bit in place, so that'll take some coaxing, but nothing too major. If not, this whole section was only tacked on with 1, 2, 3 excuse me, clumps of EUV resin, just so that I could have done this. So I'm not overly concerned about getting the whole thing out, because this bottom piece will need to be covered with the fur. So that's going to go on there, because I can't find any more of these bits of fabric. I'm going to be very sparing with them, and I'm going to make sure that I have got the correct amount, because nothing would be worse than if I ran out and, oh no, what do I do? So I'm going to cover these with scrap fabric first, just to get the shape, and then I can do what I want. So yeah.
So I eventually managed to drill through the various bits using an enormous drill bit and a Dremel, and placed the dowel rod through as shown here. Marked out 2 notches so that the open end would fit snugly.
So this will now be filled with foam, as will this. I'm thinking I might do it after it's in, but I can just kind of seal that with a bunch of stuff. Don't know what yet. Just need to clean that edge. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with how this is going so far. The cavities are filled, and it's like the world's worst ice cream. It is nowhere near cured, so those will be set aside for at least 2 hours. And I did overdo it slightly, but I knew I would, and it's fine. So next is going to be covering this. I will be using some felt first, just to kind of get the shape. Okay, so I've got this here. It's a poncho. Oh, that's nice actually. I don't. For the gun, it should be okay. For the gun, it should be okay, but yeah, you can see the difference in colour, at least. Hang on. Let me get Sabine. Here is Sabine, cosplaying as Grunkle Stan. So, I suppose technically this colour match is better, but the stripes are smaller, whereas this looks like an actual tiger, even though it's a zebra. Okay, I think I will stick with this for the body and this for the gun, because the gun is just one part of it. I can always change my mind. Okay, and she goes, put that back on, and put her back on her perch. It's a shame because that's quite nice and warm, but needs must.
So I used the green template to cut out the stripy stuff. The biggest problem here was fluff, as you can see there. I tried, quote unquote, hemming it with hot glue, but I just couldn't be bothered. So I dealt with the fluff, which will come back to bite me later. But I do end up with this little fluffy zebra seesaw hammock. So now it's a matter of putting things together, and now we've got this confusing, wonderful mess of fur and guts. Next came putting the rod through all of the various pieces and the foam by kind of ramming it through, frankly, eyeballing it to make sure it was at least vaguely straight. Putting the pieces together was a bit of a faff because I didn't want to secure it straight away. A few minor adjustments, but putting it all together was quite satisfying, I must say. Next here you see me looking at reference images to put in the raised details, which should probably have been carved, but I just didn't have the patience for that. So I don't know what's happened to the footage from this next bit. I'll just go over some of these pictures, shall I? So you may have seen in the footage there, marking out on the barrel and various other bits, the sort of designs in them. Now, technically, they are embedded, and therefore should have been carved out. Ideally, would have been carved out on the model, but I wasn't paying that close attention at that stage. So these are now raised bevels, but I think they look quite all right. They do look a little odd against the mix of off-white and grey, but yeah, I think it looks pretty okay. Once it's primed, it looks much better. Now, this looks absolutely grotesque out of context, but I spent a few hours painting the guts. These are the parts put out on my balcony. Don't worry, I did put a tarp up of all the various pieces ready to be primed. And now, folks, for the final reveal.
Give my regards to the pit, Predacon.
It's
It's done. Ta-da! I'm chuffed. Look at that. I had forgotten about this piece because various references. Oh, he turned around, he's got that bit. So I tacked that on. Same way I attached this bit. You can see here. I've got some bolts from the inside. I didn't need any nuts here because I've got a nice streamlined look there. Something I did off camera as well. I turned the support rod around so the hollow end is now, I was going to say there, but I've put a bit of felt in there to cover up the mess, and I use the existing screw hole here to kind of secure it in place. So all I need to do is unscrew it, that will loosen, and then I can take the thing apart should I need to. Yeah! Pew pew! It is a little precarious to hold. I wouldn't swing it about like a gunslinger, and the finish is not as smooth as I would like it. Come a little closer. Yeah, it's lumpy, especially in places like this because of me not doing a very good job. It's chipping already, but I'll do a touch up at some point. But again, from afar, I think that looks pretty good. Pew pew. Oh, you're probably thinking, oh, she's got a tear in her eye, she's so happy. No, it's allergies. I have Tigatron's weapon. Pew pew, the gut gun is mine. It is grotesque, but I love it. So, thank you very much for following along with me on this build. I had a great time, despite how much sanding I had to do. I absolutely love how fluffy it is. I could have just painted it, but where's the fun in that? And then it'll match the rest of the cosplay. He's going to be a fluffy Tigatron. I'm very excited. So yeah, thank you very much. If you wish to see how the rest of it goes, me too. Feel free to do the whole YouTube thing, subscribe, like, whatever. Up to you. And I will see you next time.